Hey guys, welcome to a new movie review. Today I'm going to be talking about the new Pixar film, Onward. Onward is a fantasy film from Pixar that focuses on two brothers. They live in this fantasy world where technology kind of took over it. People aren't performing magic anymore. They kind of moved away from it, so wizards aren't performing magic anymore. No battles are really happening. People have kind of moved their separate ways. They kind of live in a world that's very similar to ours. Technology really took over everything and really kind of formed this world into this world that these two brothers live in. But the real main story of this film is about two brothers who are elves, and one of them has his 16th birthday. He comes from school, and his mom has this surprise for him that she's been holding on to for a long time, and it's a wizard staff that his dad has been meaning to give to him. These two brothers never really got to know their dad. Their dad passed away a long time ago from unfortunate circumstances, and so this staff, it basically gives them a chance to meet their dad. It brings him back for 24 hours only. Once the 24 hours are up, he's gone forever. They can't do the spell again. But basically, they use the spell. They try to bring the dad back from the dead, and all they bring back is his legs. So they find out through the spell and through the directions that they were given that if they retrieve this gem within the 24 hours that they bring the dad back, it'll be his full body form. He'll be able to talk to them and things like that and interact with them. But really, when they first get the staff, all they get is his legs. So they go on this quest to find this gem in hopes to bring their dad back once and for all for the remaining 24 hours that they have to get to know him and things like that. These two brothers never really got to know the dad. The younger brother never got to know the dad because the dad was dead by the time he was born, and the younger brother has some memories of him, but really not a lot. So this is kind of a new person for him too. So basically, these two brothers have kind of lived with each other their whole life. They kind of viewed each other as not really dads, but like as parental figures, since it's only been the two of them and their mom. And throughout the course of this film, they run into characters that will help them better their chances of finding this gem, and get to know their dad even sooner for the remaining hours that they have. And of course, like any film, there's obstacles they face along the way. There's characters that don't want to help them out, that are just kind of in the way for them. And throughout the course of this film, they have to figure out how to get this gem in a reasonable time and to get to know their dad within the reasonable time that they have with him for the remaining 24 hours that they have with him. So overall, guys, I liked Onward. I will say right up front, this is not Pixar's best film. This definitely is not in the same league as like a Toy Story or a Finding Nemo or even The Incredibles. Even though I liked this movie, I really am a huge fan of Pixar, and I know when they make a film that is definitely in their caliber of what they're capable of, and when they make something that isn't in the caliber that they are capable of. And I feel like Onward, kind of like The Good Dinosaur, kind of like Cars 2, and for those who agree with, with what I'm about to say, but some are going to really be outraged by it. For those who saw Wall-E also, I think Onward, unfortunately, kind of falls in the category of those kind of films that they've made, where they're probably films I'm not going to go back to ever again. But it's not a terrible film. I don't know how this film would have done if like a DreamWorks or Sony Pictures Animation were to work on it. But after seeing this film for myself, I kind of see where the criticism is coming from that people are giving it, that it's a Pixar film that doesn't really feel like a Pixar film. And even when it does feel like a Pixar film, it feels like a very low quality one. And I kind of agree with those people. I really do feel like there is certain things about this film that don't feel as good as some of their best work, even though there are some really good things about it that I will bring up here in my positives. But for the most part, there's a lot of things about this film that don't make it feel as good as some of their better films. So for my positives of Onward, you guys, I think the biggest positive I can give this movie is the film's message, which is kind of live with what you have, but not with the things that could have been. And I think that's a very strong message, because I feel like when somebody loses a parent, or somebody loses a family member, or somebody loses their pet, or somebody loses something that they feel like they can't live the rest of their life without that person or thing, they feel like their lives are over with, that they're kind of gonna forever be lost in this situation of lost and won't be able to find their way ever again. And Onward's trying to bring up the point of it's important to live your life with what you have, who's still alive. It's important to have passions. It's important to have people who are close to you, who are still close to you, that are still alive, to celebrate life with you and to kind of live life to the fullest with those people who are still around with you and to kind of care for you and things like that. And so I do like this message of, once again, live with what you have, not with the things that could have been. So I think it's a very strong message that Onward brings to this movie and to everybody who goes and sees it. I also like the overall magic world that the film sets up. It's a magic world that doesn't have magic in it. And even for those who still kind of use magic, it's kind of this thing that, maybe people who have been around for a long time use it, or people who, find staffs like these two elf brothers, or who are interested in this wizard staff that they're interested in trying it out because they hear about it and they've heard about it through books and things like that, but they never performed it themselves. So I like this overall setup of a magical world where magic has kind of long been forgotten about. I also like the chemistry of the two elf brothers. Tom Holland and Chris Pratt voice these two brothers. Yes, they are both Marvel MCU actors who have been in films together with those movies, with the Avengers and things like that. But they really do have great chemistry in this film. They play off of each other very well. They have very good sense of humor. We really do feel like these two guys are brothers based off how they communicate with each other and have, fights with each other and things like that. So I thought the two of them really are very convincing as these two elf brothers throughout the movie. I also like some of the adventure elements in this film. There's scenes where they're picking up clues, they're finding out where they can find this gem to bring their dad's full body back, and it really is very adventurous. It's very fun to sit through. I really like a lot of the adventure elements that Pixar brought to this movie. I also really like the dad legs character. For those who ever saw the film Weekend at Bernie's, it definitely has a very Weekend at Bernie's feeling with the character being able to walk around but not being able to interact, and there's certain characteristics of his arms and things like that that don't fully work when they put clothes on him and things like that. So definitely in the spirit of Weekend at Bernie's with those kind of moments. So I like the overall dad legs character in this movie. I thought he was very funny. From my negatives of Onward, though, like I said, this really is not Pixar's best work. I feel like films like Toy Story and Finding Nemo and The Incredibles, I think why those films are so great is not only is the story great, not only is the concept great, but you really feel for the characters, you really feel for that world, you really feel like the rules are very much set up in that world and things like that. Something about this film just didn't quite feel as established as those other films did. I don't know if it was just the characters or the concept or whatever the case could have been, but whatever the reason, it doesn't really feel like it clicks, and it doesn't really feel like it's as established as some of those earlier Pixar films. So it just doesn't feel as good as a result. I also thought some of the uses of magic was very inconsistent in the film. Tom Holland's elf brother that he plays, there's scenes where he clearly doesn't know what he's doing with some of the magic, and then there's scenes where he expertly knows what he's doing out of nowhere after just hearing about, like, there's literally a scene where he just heard about a disguise spell he can use to make him look like somebody else. He masters it within 3 seconds, and so by the second the cops pull him over on the street, he's this person within 3 seconds. So it's like, how in the world could he do that and so quickly and not be able to perform this spell that has all the directions right in front of him so badly? So there's a lot of scenes where the magic really is very inconsistent. There's even a scene, I think, where the brother who doesn't perform magic is able to perform this thing with him and things like that. So there's just a lot of really inconsistent uses of magic in this film. And so I thought certain rules and establishments could have been made before the film went into production, because there's just times where I felt like they weren't thinking things through when it comes to how the magic is used in the world of this movie. I also thought the third act, without giving it away, was very anticlimactic. It really is, once you find out kind of where they have to go to get this gem and things like that, and kind of the overall adventure they just went through to kind of get to where they need to be and things like that, it really is very anticlimactic. It just felt very in your face and very not so great. So I thought the third act of this film was very underwhelming in my opinion. I also feel the overall payoffs of this film are very underwhelming as well. There's something that does happen near the end regarding the dad that I thought really was not worth the journey of the movie. I thought how they chose to give you the information and things like that visually and with dialogue, I thought was really not done very well. So I thought some of the payoffs in this film are very underwhelming as a result. I also thought some of the fantasy elements felt more like backdrop in this movie. One thing I kind of noticed with this film is you can definitely tell they came up with the concept before they kind of placed it into a genre. So in a way, it kind of felt like at one point this could have been about human characters, and so they probably thought, well, if we put it in a fantasy world, it'll spice it up a little bit, maybe make it a little more interesting. And that's kind of what that feels like. So I felt like as a result, the fantasy elements feel more like a backdrop than a genre to this movie. It felt like the fantasy stuff just felt like, hey, this is kind of boring with human characters. Let's make this a fantasy film to kind of spice this up some more. And that's kind of what the film feels like as a result. I also thought some of the characters were very underdeveloped in this film. These two brothers have this stepfather in their lives that you really don't get to know very well, and he's really just there for like two scenes in this movie regarding the adventure they go on. I also thought Octavia Spencer's character that they meet along the way, who's supposed to be this warrior like character of the past, to kind of help them find the gem and things like that. For the most part, we really don't get to know her very well. And when we do kind of see her pop up, she's either just there to kind of battle somebody or to kind of just get in the way of the brothers and things like that. So I thought there was a lot of underdeveloped characters in this film that really could have used some work. Even with some of the lead characters, like with Tom Holland's character, we really don't get to know like who his friends are in school. There's just like one scenario we face with like somebody he's having problems with in a class. There's just a lot of things about the characters, like, what does the Chris Pratt brother do all day? Does he just sit in his room all day? Does he have a job? Does he go to college? Does he go to school? What does he do? And so there's just scenes like that where it's just you really don't get to know anybody very well. So I thought some of the characters felt very underdeveloped as a result, and that's really too bad because this is Pixar. This is the same company that gave us great characters like Woody and Marlin and Nemo and Mr. Incredible and Sully and Mike and just so many characters I can think of off the top of my head that I know so well because the script around them was written so well. So I thought some of the characters were just underdeveloped in this movie as a result. But overall, I'm going to give Onward an 8 out of 10. I think it's a good movie, just not a great movie. I really do feel like Pixar has made better films than this. It's good enough where I can recommend you seeing it for a good one-time watch. I really can't see myself rewatching this many times, though. I'm sure several of you are going to probably feel the same way. Like it's a good Pixar film, just not a great one. Not a film I'm probably going to revisit anytime soon, but good enough where I can send you out to the theater to see it or to recommend you seeing it from Redbox or something like that. So Onward, 8 out of 10. It's a good film, just not a great one.